Hi everyone, so Kim here with Native Lady Bookwire. So today I am actually going to be wrapping up a whole bunch of reads. So this is just the first video, but of course I'm going to be doing this by genre. So this video is kind of narrowing in on the recent horror and thriller reads that I've read in the first quarter of 2022, but that also includes books from December. So, Bituabe, welcome. Let's get started. Okay, so the first book that I'm going to talk about is an Indigenous authored read. And this book is the second book for the Cash Black Bear series by Marcie R. Rendon. This book is called Girl Gone Missing. This book takes place in the 1970s, and the protagonist is a young Indigenous woman who is, I believe, around 19 years old. So she is a Ojibwe who is starting her first year of college at Moorhead State while also keeping her shifts as a beet farm truck driver and a pool sharking player within local bars within the area. She still has her supportive friend and newfound family member, Sheriff Wheaton, who has been a very consistent presence since the first book. So, like I stated before, this is the second book of the Cash Black Bear series. So if you haven't read the first book, I highly suggest it. It's a pretty incredible read in terms of mystery from an Indigenous perspective. And first book covers a murder that takes place within Minnesota. So Cash still has traumatic memories and experiences of her foster families due to the native adoption policies that were in place in that time in the 1970s and are very, very much affecting Indigenous communities today. So I think upon not only is this book like a thriller and a mystery and a kind of like a blend of genres, but is also very much a historical fiction. The experience that Cash goes through were not so positive. And I suggest, if you all don't know about ICWA or the Indian Child Welfare Act, I'll link that down below. I'll forward you to some resources for you to catch up on that. But other than that, I mean, if you just put ICWA, ICWA within Google, you'll be flooded with all kinds of information. Streamlining from the first book, Cash is definitely a very smart and she's doing very well in college. I think one night she falls asleep while she's at college and she has a dream of running away and being chased and wakes up to find that her dream is actually come true. It's actually reality. And thus it sets off Cash's decision to help Sheriff Wheaton solve this mystery. In the beginning, it is a little bit slow, the pacing, I mean, and it was frustrating reading about Cash's experience with racism during that time. I mean, there are so many stories that I have just speaking with friends, coworkers, or just people within my own community and beyond of their frustrations with racism during the 1970s, especially 60s. So while I was reading this book, I have to admit, the beginning, my rating of this book was just pretty much a solid 3. But the writing, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the writing. And the second half of the book is so good. It is so good. And I have to say this now, not because of the mystery necessarily, but because of Cash. Her as a character, oh my goodness, I completely love her. And I'm definitely invested in her as a character. So I have, me personally, I have a serious crush on Cash, but Cash also, because of her heartbreak experiences but also the resilience and strength that she demonstrates during this book is just astounding. It's good. So by the end of this book, oh my gosh, my heart was just broken into a million pieces, like crack, 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 crack. All these pieces all over. Now, when I think about how this book concluded, like my heart is still. I kind of have like that twinge there. I'm also happy because, not because my heart is broken, obviously, but because I heard that there's going to be another book coming out pretty soon. I think the third installment of the Cash Black Bear series is coming out, I think, in the fall. So I'm so very much trying to get an arc of that, because that is, this is a series, even though the pacing is slow, and it's not just specifically a mystery genre, even though that is probably what it's labeled as, but there's just so many elements within, especially the writing, especially the prose. I'm very much enjoying it. But at the end of the day, I think I'm just so invested in Cash. I'm so invested in this character. So when I rounded the second half of this book and then also the beginning, I think my rounding kind of came out to about 3.75 stars to about 4. I'm kind of like teetering back and forth, but yeah, this is definitely a read that I very much enjoyed. So the next thriller book that I read is a YA thriller by Indigenous author Angeline Boulley, and that book is called Firekeeper's Daughter. I reread Firekeeper's Daughter just very recently. Oh yeah, and then Angeline Boulley is a Ojibwe and the citizen of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Nation, and I very much enjoyed this reread the second time around. I reread this book to participate in a live show with Rachel from Reads with Rachel, and I'm not going to go too much into depth with my experience with this book because I think I did discuss it before in a wrap up, but I will absolutely link my discussion and my thoughts, but also thoughts from other very incredible booktubers who also participated in this discussion. But yeah, I mean, it's such an extraordinary read, especially for a YA. There's just so much packed within this book. I mean, it goes over really complex themes and really breaks them down, especially when it comes to tribal sovereignty, self-determination of Indigenous nations, cultural strengths, resiliences, challenges of tribal citizenship. The one thing that I very much enjoyed was Native youth empowerment, very much demonstrated throughout this book, and then also Indigenous healing that takes place in this book. So like I said, there's plenty of Indigenous joy, brilliance throughout this book, and I very much enjoyed it the second time around. And again, I will link that somewhere up here, that the discussion for that book, because it was such a great discussion. Okay, so this next book, oh, it is so good. I'll just tell you right now, this next read that I read is a horror, and it is a 5-star read. I think I talked about this book during a vlog that I did before, but this next book I'm going to talk about is called This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. And this book, wow. You know how some people say that when a book is so good, they state they should make this book into a movie. Well, I say that this book is so good that they should never make it into a movie, because I feel like there's so much in this book. I feel like seeing it on screen that it's just gonna miss so much, or unless like whoever makes this movie is able to get a super awesome cast and a super awesome director with some serious vision, and I think that can probably be a possibility. But at this point, I'm just like, no, I'm happy for it to just stay as a book. This book gave me nightmares. I'm not gonna share what my nightmares were about, but within my nightmares there was some serious claustrophobia. So this book starts out with a young man, Thiago, who just lost his wife, Vera. So Thiago is telling this story. I don't really want to say how, because I feel that's going to be a spoiler, but when I found out, I was like, whoa. Thiago is telling, he basically talks about how his life basically fell apart, starting with the strange and eerie malfunction of a smart device called Itza. In the beginning, Thiago and his wife, Vera, think that this malfunction is funny, or it's just they get frustrated, minor frustrations with it, until it's funny. Then all of a sudden it's not funny anymore, and there's like strange occurrences that are quickly happening, and they start to escalate, and unfortunately they end up resulting in a like crushing tragedy. And it doesn't tell you right away what happened to Thiago's wife, to Vera, but you just know like what happened. You are kind of like just gobbling up crumbs as the author gives you the reveals what is going on and what happened. But I think what unsettled me with this book, and what I really enjoyed with this book, is definitely the tone. It's ominous. It's something that where you know something is happening, and you're just peeling, not necessarily peeling back the layers of this story, but you're just waiting to find out. You're just waiting to absorb those details. Throughout this book, the characters quickly understand that they are probably very much likely experiencing stalking or haunting from an entity. And it's really interesting how technology is layered within that. I thought that to be not something that was just thrown in there, but it was a very awesome and creative detail within the story that I very much enjoyed. But I think throughout this story, you're just given chunks that are essential in what's going on. I think throughout this book, I found that there were no details that you could just throw away. It was all very much a part of the interweaving that is taking place within the story, because those details very much feed the plot and its pacing, and it it is such a good book. So this slow to medium paced book is dark. It's tense, and the intensity has this very wonderful blend of character driven and plot driven strength. The author very much knows how to create tension within the narrative and the writing that they are presenting to you, and it's almost like there's this mystery that is building up within your mind, and it has your mind and your brain jumping all over the place, and it's so good. And there's also this very nice teeter-totter that is taking place between the supernatural and also between psychological horror, and also like a splash of gore and all of that. But this book also, I think what the thing that I enjoyed probably the most about this book is the writing of grief within this book, and how grief, anger, and loneliness is written on this whole new level that I've never experienced before, and it's soul crushing. And to have that within a horror, it was something that was really awesome. It's like it's doused in all these details of not just emotion, but definitely of humanity and in all its rawness. The writing is very fluid. The transitions, there's almost no transitions. It's very seamless. And the writing, I think one of the reasons why I enjoyed this so much, and another reason why I very much like Stephen Graham Jones' writing, is because it's really literary, and it's attention grabbing, while the author kind of like navigates us through these bone-chilling horrors that are taking place that Thiago very much can escape. And there's just this there's this thing in the back of your head, and you're thinking, well, I thought, is he gonna make it out of this? So I tell you, there's this part in the book as I read it, and I was reading it while my husband was driving, and I was like, ah! And I dropped the book on the floor of the car, and he was like, what's going on? But it was so good. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Again, 5-star read. It's such a good book. I suggest you all check it out. So yes, This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. Awesome book. Okay, so the next book that I read very much recently is Lakewood by Megan Giddings. This is a horror book I actually read in February. I think I read it for Blackathon, and it's a horror, like I said before, and almost like a very quiet thriller. And this book is written by Black author Megan Giddings. This book has very much been recommended by so many people. And I read it honestly because of Jessie from Bow Ties and Books. So just kind of like a quick blurb. This book follows a young Black woman, Lena, and in its very beginning, her grandmother just recently passes. But along with that devastating loss, Lena discovers that her and her mother are very much in debt. So Lena makes all these very difficult decisions at the beginning of the book in order to solve their financial problems. But very soon later, she like almost miraculously receives an offer in the mail that she is chosen for a specific study in a very small town called Lakewood, Michigan. And this offer comes with all of these perks, and as a reader, you're reading and almost celebrating because Lena is just this amazing character, but at the same time, you are thinking, what is going on here? Right? I mean, not because this offer just kind of comes out of nowhere. I mean, and one of the perks is like Lena has this high-paying job. She has excellent medical coverage, a place to live while she performs her duties for this study. But also Lena, I think this is where it gets really interesting, is that Lena can't tell anybody about this study. It's kind of like this study that is top secret. She can't share the details of it. And even the institution and the people behind this study, that they even have a whole cover behind the area and all these backstories for the people who are engaging in this study and participating in it, in case like people come with questions and start asking questions about what they are doing there. Yeah, so the whole study is very covert. And not only that, but Lena is also lying to her friends, to her family about her job. And oh my gosh, I think I'm going to stop there, but this book was so good. The thing that just keeps coming back to me is like, if you ever read a book where you are not only devastated by its conclusion, but you feel like, wow, it's already over. The tension throughout this book, it's not very tense, but it's just a light tug, and it keeps you engaged throughout the whole thing. It's not where this adventure thriller where the plot is very fast paced. The intensity of this slow burn, almost like horror thriller, it's just so good. And this book very much unsettled me. I think why one of the reasons why I gave this book a high rating was because this book, it stayed with me afterwards, especially because when you think about our own history within this country and the brutal history on Black bodies and minds and spirituality, just all these levels, and all the things that have been done to Black bodies in the name of science and experimentation, this book haunted me for a while. I think after I read this, I kind of had to take a little break. And I mean, honestly, I could see this actually happening, like in reality. If someone were to tell me this story and say that this event happened to them, I wouldn't be like, yeah, right. I think this is very much a reality, especially explores themes of race and class, and it definitely stoked the fires of my thoughts and thinking. And although the pacing is slow, it is definitely one of those slow burning horror reads that lingers from page to page, and sometimes you even find yourself cringing at a lot of things, but I suggest before you read this, you definitely need to check out the content warnings for this book. But this book was just incredible. I rated this book 4.75 stars. So yeah, definitely check this out if you haven't read it. Okay, so the next book that I read is Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. It's a thriller read, and this book follows two fathers, one white and one black, and their names are Buddy Lee and Ike. Buddy Lee and Ike very recently lost their sons to violence, and their sons were murdered. Unfortunately, they are fathers that weren't supportive at all of their marriage and their sons' life choices until it was too late. So obviously, these fathers are filled with grief and regret. The two fathers themselves try to make amends through finding their son's killers, and they go on this vengeful mission and using contacts that they have made in their past lives as ex-cons. So during this story, both fathers aim to confront not only their prejudices, but in that process, they are also very much grieving for their children, the loss of their children. So, okay. In terms of rating, I'm kind of like struggling. I think right away, as soon as I finished it, I gave it 3 stars, but now I'm kind of like teetering between 2.5 and 3. And the stars that were given wasn't because of the writing. I mean, definitely there was a bunch of dialogue. The audiobook was okay. My problems with this book actually happens at the very beginning of the book. So there's a POV that already reveals the whodunit, right? So, but throughout the book, you're just trying to find out who is responsible for the puppet strings of whodunit. And because of that, I was kind of like already bummer. I kind of thought it was going to kind of go into this elaborate investigation of both characters, kind of like utilizing their not underground, but their connections that they had or have in their past lives. I sort of understand possibly why the writer done that, maybe to already give the protagonist obstacles and difficulties and challenges in them finding out why this person was responsible for their son's murders. But but I don't know why I didn't really enjoy it. I think especially that part, because I was thinking, oh, okay, I'm kind of gonna go down all these rabbit holes of what's going on, because I mean, I think especially when I found out that one of the sons was a journalist. So right now I'm kind of gonna go into mild spoilers, because I think it's important in me talking about why I kind of rated this book low and why I was kind of like mildly disappointed in this read, because I heard such great things about it. And it was because there's this twist that happens within the book, or this plot reveal. And it's like a kind of like a reason why these murders were committed, and that twist or that plot reveal. And I can't give it away because it's such a major spoiler. But that twist, yeah, I was definitely really disappointed in that twist. But also, I felt like the character development was almost not even development. I felt like it was character fast forward with these protagonists, and therefore not much character development. Do you know what I mean? So this, unfortunately, was a disappointing read for myself. I was really expecting something different from the story, and it fell flat for me. I mean, especially when it comes to the perspectives. I was thinking maybe the fathers were kind of gonna have like a POV where it goes back and forth between the fathers and the sons, and kind of have like this really cool dynamic, even though the sons aren't there anymore. And then also I kind of thought that maybe not that the protagonists were going to make this huge change, especially since they are facing their prejudices throughout this whole story, like not having this huge change or this huge development that's so fast. But instead, I thought it would kind of peel back the layers of the characters and their misunderstandings and of why they may be homophobic. So I don't know. I just I just had so many expectations with this book, and unfortunately I was disappointed. I haven't stamped my rating on this book, but it's gonna be somewhere between a 2.5 and a 3. So yeah. Okay, so the next horror read that I very much devoured is a series read. It's the second book for the African Immortal series, and that book is The Living Blood by Tannarive Due. Tannarive Due is a Black author, and first of all, I just want to say right away, this book that I'm going to be talking about, obviously, it's going to contain spoilers for the first one, because there is an event at the end of book 1 that is just leaves your mind just fried. So if you haven't read this book, I suggest you skip to the next timestamp for the next book talk that I have. But yeah, I enjoyed this book. But anyway, so 3, 2, 1, I warned you. But my Soul to Keep book 1 ends with the book of Kira, who is the daughter of protagonists David or Dawit and Jessica. So at that conclusion of that book, Jessica finds out that she is pregnant, and that pregnancy results in a very supernaturally gifted child. So, and David or Dawit has escaped the police and then just leaves, obviously, the mortal world with all kinds of questions and confusion, but he ends up making his way back to the colony, or back to, I think what they referred to it as was the Brotherhood. I'm not sure. I can't, it's been kind of like a bit since I read this, but Jessica and her sister are actually in Africa. So like the rural part of Africa, and Jessica is using her own immortal blood to cure children in Africa. So in this new story, Jessica is kind of like working her way through parenthood again, not only remembering the trauma that she is basically working through with the loss of her daughter, but also trying to figure out how to parent this extremely gifted child whose name is Fauna. So those abilities are developing pretty quickly, and not only while she is growing, but of course, like, even though she has these abilities, she still has this psychological mindset and development still of a 3 to 4 year old child. So Jessica is facing so many challenges with that, but at the very beginning of the book, she realizes that she needs help, that she likely very much has to seek out the help of not only David, but the Brotherhood, to understand like how is she able to raise this child, especially when this child is so gifted. She begins her journey making her way towards Dawit and the Life Brothers colony. I think I'm sorry, I think that's what it's called. But I rated this 4 stars only because some of the things written in this book don't always all hold up for this time, and don't necessarily hold up in 2022. There's this one scene where this native ceremony is being performed to do a healing, but during that ceremony something else happens. I don't know. So that part definitely unfortunately bothered me, and I kept rereading that part because I was thinking, am I reading this right? But yeah, that is something that I was kind of uncomfortable with. But at the same time, this book was also published in 2002, so but everything else was pretty good. I think also this book is really long. The details within this book, especially when it comes to describing the setting, like the disposition of this book, it's pretty good. But I feel like I don't feel like it needed to be that long, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. But I think what Tannarive does really extremely well is she writes flawed characters that we could possibly relate to. Not in a sense of race, but definitely in a sense of challenges. I feel like there's so many themes in this book in terms of parenthood, but also Tannarive do also very much blends genre very well. I saw like this interlacing of genre, not just thriller focused or horror focused, but also there is I was like, is this paranormal? Is this fantasy? And maybe it's just because I'm not so stringent and understanding of specifically what genres are, but I saw and experienced during my reading thriller elements, mystery elements, and fantasy elements. So and also really strong, awesome cultural elements. I feel like the cultural elements with any book are just probably my favorite details and my favorite things to read about. Tannarive Du's ability to describe and just put us in a setting, to put us in a place, and to have us feel connected to it is also pretty incredible writing. I think her writing very much makes me want to travel and go all sorts of places. But I think the complexity of characters and the grayness of those characters in terms of morality and the decisions that they make are very much human, and I very much enjoyed that. Do very much dishes out complex characters, like I said before, and I think that element is like my favorite thing about her writing. It's just so human. And I think that's one of my favorite things about reading books is just the humanity that is on those pages and its authenticity. Even though that authenticity frustrates you, I think that's what makes for a very good read. So yeah, I gave this book 4 stars. I am very much going to be continuing this read. I think the next book is called, I don't know, I cannot remember what book 3 is called, probably because I'm just kind of exhausted right now, but yeah, I can't wait. Okay, so the last horror read that I recently read is called The Last Final Girl by Stephen Graham Jones. I read this book along with Bree from book channel Lock Booktition, and for a readathon, or no, not a readathon, a read-along that we are doing together, co-hosting together, called the SGJ Verse Read-Along. We are reading Stephen Graham Jones books and lit, and we're just talking about our experiences with Stephen Graham Jones's writing. So The Last Final Girl by Stephen Graham Jones is a small town slasher horror that I absolutely enjoyed. I had such a good time with this book. This book gave me serious horror movie feels, and it's definitely written as if you are watching this horror like movie unfold in front of you. Many will probably state it's kind of written like a screenplay, but it's not. It's actually written like a horror, very much unfolding in front of your reading mind, as if you are right there watching this horror on the big screen. I mean, it gives you very succinct details of what is going on within the book, like shot by shot or frame by frame, basically. And it just has so many feels. This book felt like a mix of the movie Scream and also Cabin in the Woods and maybe some other movie horror parody with plenty of horror satire. I found this book to be so hilarious, so deliberately ridiculous that you are wondering, like, this can't get any more horror tropey, but it definitely does. And it's so wonderful. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters and their extensive surviving a horror movie knowledge. And I talk about this book a lot. So basically, if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this book, I'll just link that discussion that Bree and I had about it. So yeah, I really liked the last Final Girl. I gave it I mean inside, because I laughed and had so much enjoyment with it, but there was also like I don't know, there's kind of also this guilt that I experienced, because definitely, I mean, we all know, like, especially old horror, like in the 90s, early 2000s, it's very sexist. And also like kind of like playing at misogyny, but I feel like Stephen Graham Jones is also saying something about that as well. But I just feel I don't want to talk about it. I just feel like you should read it. I think you'll enjoy it. The format that it's written in it's something new. I just suggest you all try it out. I mean, I've laughed more than once while reading this book. Yeah, so I couldn't give it 5 stars. I just ended up giving it 4. But it was good. I enjoyed it. So that concludes my recent horror thriller reads. Have you all read any of these books? Did you all enjoy them as much as I did? If you did, let me know. If you didn't, I would very much like to hear why. If you made it to the end of this video, maybe put a knife or skull emoji in your comments, or you can just put it on there as well, or you can tell me what your most recent horror thriller read is. So, or was. Yeah. Come here. I hope you are all doing well. I hope you are all safe. I hope you are reading fiercely. So I shall talk to you later, and I shall talk to you soon. All right. Bye.